Hello, everybody. You have reached the No Name Cinema Society, and it is time for our freeform segment. We call it the Sound Off. It is Monday, July 23rd, 2018, and this is the 33rd time we've done this Sound Off. Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Betzler. I am in Astoria, which is in the county of Queens in New York City, and I've been here for a little bit, broadcasting here. I've done a number of shows from here over the last couple of years. And as I mentioned, this is our freeform segment where we're bound to do and say just about anything. One of our founders was, felt early on that, we were so structured in some of our reviews about shows that we didn't get a chance to just like talk about movies, in a conversational way. So we do some more fun segments on this kind of show. Not that anybody watches the Sound Off, and that's a whole other thing. So speaking of founders and such, let me introduce my co-host for tonight. First, the old standby, and I emphasize the word old. Drunk Davey is here with us.
I'm younger than you are.
That is true. And ladies and gentlemen, for his second consecutive show, Ryan Turner. Speaking of young.
I am definitely younger than you are.
So Ryan, this is your first Sound Off, and I doubt you've watched them because no one does. Do you have any idea what to expect?
I do not. I'm excited for this wild and crazy ride. I got a beer this time.
Oh, Ryan's drinking. What are you drinking, Ryan?
This is a Grolsch premium lager.
It's a GR what?
It is a...
Oh, Grolsch.
Grolsch.
A German lager. I've got more Two-Hearted Ale. Our schedule for our 49 series of episodes. This is the end of our 49 series of episodes. And as you can see, we started on Wednesday, July 11th with The Ant-Man and the Wasp. Then on Monday, July 16th, we did the indie spotlight of the French film Blue is the Warmest Color from 2013. The classic we discussed this series was this past Thursday, July 19th. We did the 1990 film Pump Up the Volume, starring Christian Slater and Samantha Mathis. And, of course, now is a Sound Off. We've got some fun stuff for you. Of course, we're going to do this Day in History. I have a quick tweet beat for Davey. We're going to do Bring Back the Movie Game, an obscure movie discovery, and everybody's favorite, the top 5, which is going to be the top 5 angry youth films. Let's do Davey's least favorite segment, This Day in History, everybody. It's time for that. And today is July 23rd. And so on this day, in 1904, the first ice cream cone was created at the St. Louis World's Fair. So that's kind of exciting. On this day in 1978, and this one's for Davey, 40 years ago today, Steve Carlton won his 200th game as a Philly, and he was the 78th pitcher to do so. You excited about that, Davey?
You bet.
And on this day in 1984, Vanessa Williams resigned as Miss America. She was the first African-American to hold that title, but she was forced to resign after she was discovered having done a nude layout for the Penthouse. And like the Olympics, Miss Americans were supposed to be amateurs, so getting paid for a modeling job, albeit a nude one, was out of bounds, and she was stripped, no pun intended, actually the pun was intended, of her title. Do you guys remember that?
No, but you know where she went to college?
The Cuse?
You bet.
Okay, I don't care. You know where Martin Scorsese went to college?
Cares.
Ryan, do you remember Vanessa Williams? Did you know she was Miss America?
Like Vanessa and Serena?
Vanessa and Serena.
Venus and Serena.
Whoa.
That's Venus, not Venus Williams. Vanessa Williams.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, clearly I do not know.
Okay, but you know who Vanessa Williams is, right?
Mm-mm.
No.
Oh, wow. She had a recording career after that and a acting career. She's on Broadway. Birthdays today. Today's the 57th birthday of somebody who's been in a big movie in the last couple of months. Woody Harrelson from Solo turns 57 today. I think the only time we ever reviewed Woody Harrelson was when we did War for the Planet of the Apes. That's the only time I think show that we've done with Woody Harrelson involved. Is that right, Davey?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you guys have anything on this day in history, those little tidbits? Anything you thought was interesting? And Ryan's like, nope, nothing was interesting.
I didn't think any of it was interesting. No.
Okay.
No.
He's laughing to diffuse the pain, but it's true. Anyway, there's a quick tweet beat came in, a question that I've never asked Davey. There's so many movies for this show that I've made Davey watch that he's never even heard of, and he hates many of them. The audience was curious, what movie that I made you watch really surprised you? 2 or 3 or 1 takeaways from the 3.5 years we've been doing the show of movies that you've discovered. Like, what movies have you discovered from me, essentially?
All right. Well, first of all, the takeaway is that you like long, boring movies.
Yeah, I do.
Basically, what ones did you introduce me to that I really liked?
That's basically the question, yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking.
I mean, I know there's a couple because there's a couple I'm surprised.
Yeah, there definitely has been some. I liked the one with the old psychiatrists.
The Dangerous Method?
The Dangerous Method. That one's stuff.
And by old psychiatrist, he means Jung and Freud, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I mean, like, long time ago. Set in the past. Not old now. They're old, not in the movie.
They're dead now.
Right. Old, but old, dead. That was good. And then I think some of the classics. I mean, I think the what was the one that we did the Facebook thing with?
Johnny Belinda.
Johnny Belinda. That was good. It's a good movie. Yeah. Those two come to mind. There's been others.
For some reason, I thought Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf would make this list because you seem to really like that one.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Like, I hadn't seen that before, but I'd heard of it. I mean, it's not like you introduced me to that.
Got it. Okay. All right. So it's time for the movie game. Davey knows how this works because we've done this once on the show. I think we did it episode 45.4. It's easy to get the hang of once you get it, Ryan. Davey's terrible at it, but he enjoys it for some reason. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Davey? I'm not putting words in your mouth.
It's fair. I don't remember how to play, though. So.
Oh, well, then you go. Well, I mean, it's easy in the sense that basically, one of us names a movie, and the next person has to name either the actor or the director in that movie. And then the next person has to name another movie I blocked my own camera. The other person has to name another movie that the next person was in. Dave, does that ring a bell now?
Yes, I like it.
Now, you cannot win, however, unless, like, if you stump people, like if I said something and stumped you and it came back to me, I need to be able to name someone else in that movie or another movie. I need to be able to answer the own question for me to actually get the victory. Does that make sense? If you try to stump someone with like a random actor that did one movie, then you don't win if you can't name another movie that actor was in.
I'm sure I'll get it once I see it.
Well, there's only 3 of us, so there's not much to watch. I mean, like, basically, I'll name the movie, and then Davey will name an actor from the movie, and then you have to name another movie that actor was in.
It's just movie, actor?
Yeah, or it can be director. It can be actor or director. And
Gotcha.
It did not take long last time. I was able to get these guys out. It was me, Devin, and Davey, and I didn't try very hard to get them out, but I am going to put 5 minutes on the clock just in case it gets to be too long. So let's start with one of our movies that we reviewed for this series of episodes. Let's start with Pump Up the Volume. And so, Davey, you would name an actor or the director of Pump Up the Volume.
Christian Slater.
Christian Slater. So, Ryan, you would then have to name another Christian Slater movie.
Oh, man. Why can't I think of a Christian Slater movie?
There's quite a few of them.
Hold on. That was example round?
Just pick a movie. He's been in plenty. And again, you have to be able to name another actor of that movie if it comes back around to you.
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of a Christian Slater movie. I don't know why it's blanking on me. Okay, yeah, this easy one. Okay. True Romance.
True Romance gives us many, many options. I'll go with Christopher Walken.
All right, we'll go Annie Hall then.
Annie Hall.
We'll keep it simple. Woody Allen.
Woody Allen. Okay. I will go with... I kind of want to stump you guys just to move on, but I won't. I'll go with Manhattan.
No, I have another answer, so don't... I'm not allowed to say Woody Allen again, right? Like that.
You are not allowed to say Woody Allen again. Of course not. You're just stalling for time at this point. What is it?
Well, Muriel Hemingway, right?
Muriel Hemingway. All right,
Yeah.
so that's a stumpable one.
Oh, man. I'm stumped.
Yeah, but I can't.
You're counting that I'm going to be able to name another Muriel Hemingway film. Isn't that right?
I'm sure you can.
I can. That is her one Oscar nomination.
That's one more than I would have guessed.
Okay, you didn't think she ever had one?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have.
So Ryan, you're out then. That's what you're saying. You can't.
I can't name another movie she's in.
Okay. Well, she is in a movie called The Contender from 2000, among others. Davey,
All right, and you win.
you haven't seen The Contender?
No. What is that?
And in fairness, Davey, like you give me trouble for making it hard, but you did open this door with Muriel Hemingway.
I had one other actor I could remember from Manhattan. What was I going to do?
Who was the other one?
No, that was it. That was it.
Woody Allen? You couldn't remember Diane Keaton or Meryl Streep?
Oh, yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
All right, Davey, that was like 2 minutes. Do you want to play another round?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Let's play again.
All right, one more round. The audience is much more knowledgeable than you are. They're probably like super frustrated. They're like,
The audience doesn't have the pressure of being viewed by no people.
especially the sound offs. All right, movie game. Here we go. All right, so Ryan, you were out first, so I will let you choose a movie to start with.
We'll do Fargo.
Fargo, which came up in our last episode. Okay, let's go with William H. Macy.
The Cooler.
The Cooler,
Not seen it.
2003. Are you out again?
Yeah, I'm out again. Haven't seen that.
All right. Well, you opened up with The Cooler, so should I go easy? Should I go hard? Because Cooler did get one Oscar nomination, but it should have gotten a second one. So I am going to go with the person who should have been nominated, Maria Bello.
And you win. I don't even know who that is. Who is that?
You know Maria Bello? Oh,
No.
She's beautiful blonde. Oh, she's in tons of stuff, like Autofocus.
Oh, Autofocus. Household movie right there.
She's in A History of Violence.
Okay. Yeah, anyway.
Ryan, do you know Maria Bello?
No.
I didn't think that was that hard. Okay. The Cooler was like a coming out party for Maria Bello, but she was in Thank You for Smoking. She's in History of Violence. She did the American version of Prime Suspect for, well, it got canceled after a month or so, but Maria Bello is one of those actors I've always wanted to work with. So, all right, Davey, was that short enough to do one more, or you want to move on?
I think we do another one. They don't go very
I might
long.
try and stump guys quicker now. But Davey,
Quicker than one round.
Oh, yeah. Quicker than what? Someone gave a right answer?
You would have made it
Fair enough. All right, maybe I won't. I don't know. I guess I should have gone with Alec Baldwin for that one.
Yeah, you should have. We might have gotten to play the game a little bit.
I really like Maria Bello, though, and I just wanted to bring her up on the show because we don't talk about her on the show.
Talk about her whenever you want. It's the sound off.
That's true.
It's to wreck the game.
Davey, why don't you pick a movie or an actor?
I don't know any movies. All
pick one from our series of episodes.
Okay.
Pick somebody from Blue is the Warmest Color. Pick somebody from
I could not name an actress from Blue is the Warmest Color.
Okay.
None of them are in English.
They're pretty famous now.
No, they're not.
So Ryan, why don't you name an actor from Blue is the Warmest Color, preferably the one that we saw together.
Léa Seydoux or
Léa Seydoux, yes, who plays Emma in Blue is the Warmest Color.
Wait, you saw her?
We saw her in the movie Spectre.
Oh, in the movie, not like in the plane when you saw what's her face.
No, Samantha Mathis. No. So Spectre.
Right. Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig to Ryan.
Girl with the dragon tattoo.
Okay. All right. Rudy Marr.
Yeah, I can do this. I'm picturing two different movies in my head right now. I just need to
pick one.
Carol.
Carol? Ryan?
Okay. I haven't seen it, but I think I know something about it.
Carol was the number 10 film from 2016, I think.
Saoirse Ronan, is she in it?
No, you're thinking of the film Brooklyn. It's Saoirse Ronan, and no, she's not in it. I think you're thinking you're thinking of Kate Blanchett, but the actor I'm going to go with from Carol, to keep it as someone we talked about in the show recently, I'm going to go with Kyle Chandler.
Oh.
Okay, I got it. Oh, God, what's his face won the Academy Award? Manchester by the Sea.
Manchester by the Sea. Okay, so I will go with Lucas Hedges.
Okay, I can do that one. Lady Bird.
Okay, so let's go back to Saoirse Ronan.
That's not cool.
I just named the movie she was in. Just like minutes ago to Ryan.
But I wasn't paying attention. I don't. When you're not talking to me, I barely even pay attention to that.
And you can't say that I'm like trying to stump you because that was a softball. Brooklyn. Thank you very much. So I'm gonna keep it in the show as an actress we talked about over the years. Julie Walters.
Congratulations, you win.
One of our biggest episodes ever. And you don't remember what Julie Walters was in?
No, I don't know who she is. Who is this person?
She's Rita in Educating Rita.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, I mean, I usually win. That's not news. But that round was probably the longest it's ever been, right, Davey? That wasn't bad?
I can hang.
Sort of. I mean, look at our next segment, which is the obscure movie discovery. When we study movies from certain years, and we've done 1990, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we did 1966. Last year, we did 1942. I have a bunch of my Netflix queue, and they show up sort of after the fact. And so I watch them after the fact. And they're usually more obscure because I try to see the bigger movies. It's always interesting to see some of these lesser-known movies. I've watched a bunch lately from all 3 years. These four numbers here represent films from 1942, 1966, and 1990. So, Ryan, you are newer to the show, so I'm going to let you pick a number. Davey's always picking numbers, so
3.
Go with 3. This is 3, and the movie is The Ugly Dachshund. It's a Disney movie from 1966. Strangely enough, we did a top 5 Disney live-action movies back when Davey even did top 5s in episode 11.1. He was terrible at it, which is why he's shaking his head.
God, I hated it so bad.
And it gets its title because it's an update of The Ugly Duckling, except in this case, a young couple, played by Dean Jones and Suzanne Pleshette, get a Great Dane mixed in with their set of dachshund puppies, and zaniness ensues. The movie has one idea that it repeats over and over again. The dachshunds cause a lot of trouble, the Great Dane tries to stop it and then gets blamed for the trouble. Rinse and repeat, over and over and over again. Like in another 1966 film called Any Wednesday, Dean Jones oozes charm and charisma. And you guys might know Dean Jones from another Disney movie, The Love Bug. It's one of his probably his more famous films. I don't know if you guys remember The Love Bug. About Herbie the car. Herbie Rides Again, a bunch of sequels. Never mind. Anyway, Dean Jones oozes charm and charisma. It seems he was on track to be a good leading man in regular movies before Disney turned him in one of their guys. I feel like that derailed his career to some degree. Suzanne Pleshette didn't have the same problem, of course, having a very plentiful television career with Bob Newhart. But conversely, she was pretty awful in this. It's not entirely her fault. Her character was written as a two-dimensional shrew, and that had a negative impact on the movie. Director Norman Tokar seemed to have very little interest in his human actors. Most of his attention was on the animals. One of the more notable appearances in the film, Davey, is that of Mako, the Japanese-American actor who was Oscar nominated in 1966 for The Sand Pebbles, which is a movie I believe you watched. Didn't you watch The Sand Pebbles?
Yeah, I think I did, but I don't remember it.
Okay, Steve McQueen in the Navy?
Yes, okay, yeah.
And do you remember Mako, who was like tortured midway through the film, his Japanese assistant? He appears in The Ugly Dachshund, and he was not very good here, and the Japanese actors in the film were dealt with in very racist ways.
Oh.
However, interestingly, in an interview on the DVD, Mako justified it to some degree, arguing that Disney was one of the few studios that were consistently going out of their way to cast Asians in their feature work. It's an interesting point of view, like in the question it raises, is it better to have Asians depicted in racist ways or ignore it altogether? I'm not sure the answer to that, but at the time, certainly as an actor looking for work, Mako was willing to take whatever he could. And of course, by the end of the film, Brutus the Great Dane has his redemption, as you might expect from a Disney film. But the ride isn't really very fun at all. Maybe an occasional cute moment, but other than that, it's pretty boring. Not as offensively bad as some of the other 1966 films I saw, but not very good either. I suppose nobody's seen The Ugly Dachshund.
I have not.
That's the obscure movie discovery then. I suppose you guys aren't going to rush to watch it now. I mean, now that I've badmouthed it.
It may be good.
If I didn't like it?
Was it not long enough? Did too many things happen in the film? Is that what?
Oh, he's getting feisty. Are you just upset about losing the movie game?
No.
Do you think you're ever going to win the movie game?
No.
All right, as long as we're clear about that.
Ryan and I would have a good game.
You tell me over and over again, though. You got me out a bunch.
With 2 people. So it's time for JB's Top 5. And tonight, it's the Top 5 Angry Youth Films, which is the Top 5 that Davey assigned me based on our discussion of Pump Up the Volume, which was in this series of episodes. This is our 49th series of episodes. When I started to think about this Top 5, I realized that there was a lot of crossover with the counterculture Top 5 that I talked about in episode 43.4. And I was trying to think out how do I differentiate this? And I started to think about Pump Up the Volume itself. And so I decided to center on movies where the kids were angry about something very specific. They had a very particular gripe and tried to enforce social change. And that focused the list a little more. So it's not just about lost, bored, confused, and disenfranchised youth. It's a directed sort of anger. And that sort of eliminated films that I was originally thinking about, like Blackboard Jungle, The Trainspotting, and The Outsiders. And Trainspotting would have been very high on the list, but in refining the list, I sort of decided that it didn't qualify as, like, there's a lost youth quality to it, but they weren't rebelling in any specific kind of way. I actually went to Devin Michaels for help on this one a little bit, just running ideas by him, and we had a lot of interesting arguments about this, and we'll get to that momentarily as I start the list. It was interesting what to consider and what not. But I will start with one film that is a crossover between this list and the list in episode 43.4, the list of counterculture films, my top 5. And you don't get much angrier youth than neo-Nazi bikers. And this is The Wild Angels from director Roger Corman. The last time I talked about this film in episode 43.4, I really put Davey off when I showed the clip of Peter Fonda's famous speech about what the kids wanted, what they were angry about. That speech alone, I think, helps qualify it here. Now, it is a problematic film, as I said back then. I mean, it's simultaneously fascinating and important, but also extremely disturbing, frustrating, and impactful. The heroes are Nazis and racists and rapists. So it's uncomfortable viewing. Roger Corman doesn't necessarily condone the behavior in the film, but he does seem to avoid moral judgment. Unlike something like Blackboard Jungle, for example, which seems to judge the kids harshly instead of just depicting them, that results in a very vile picture of 50s youth culture. Here, I feel like Corman's movie feels more like chaos, depiction of an avalanche that you can't stop, so you better run. The film has a lot of great metaphors throughout the film, like when Bruce Dern unhooks a horse from its tether and then watches as the horse doesn't go anywhere, sort of suggesting, okay, here's your freedom, what are you going to do with it? The screenplay for the film, which was co-written supposedly by Peter Bogdanovich of Last Picture Show fame, doesn't really bother to investigate what leads these kids to this attitude or their behavior. But for all its shock value, the film sends a message to the powers that be, that the next generation wasn't going to take things lying down. They weren't going to accept the world as it was. They were going to go and make it their own world, even if it did seem misguided at the time. Now, when I talked about this film last time and I showed the clip, Davey was kind of repulsed by the clip and vowed never to watch it.
Did I say I'd never watch it?
Yeah.
Huh. All right. I stand by that.
I knew you would. Ryan, have you ever heard of Corman's The Wild Angels?
I have not.
You've heard of Roger Corman, though.
Of course.
Have you seen any Roger Corman films that he's directed?
I don't think so. What's his most famous?
It might be The Wild Angels. I mean, he's famous as a producer of for films like Ron Howard and Scorsese and others, Jim Cameron, I believe. Wild Angels might be his most famous as a director. I had to think about that. Oh, Peter Bogdanovich is another one. He obviously got started as well with Targets in 1968. But anyway, so, I mean, the films are, he's known for this shock value that he has to his films. You know what I mean? Like, so they have to be taken with a grain of salt. They're almost like the way you describe Pump Up the Volume. They're interesting to look at from a historical perspective. You know, they're not always great polished filmmaking, but they're interesting for what they were.
Right.
So I'm going to move on to number 4, guys. Yeah?
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Moving right along to my number 4, and it's definitely a film that these guys haven't seen. Maybe Ryan on one of those more adventurous days, because I've got a 1933 film, and not only is it old, but it's French. A French film directed by the master Jean Vigo. It's called Zero for Conduct, number 4, in which students at a boarding school have an all-out rebellion against the bureaucratic school leadership, and they actually take over the school. It's a direct predecessor to something like Lindsay Anderson's If with Malcolm McDowell in 1971, I think. If isn't on my list because I just don't think it's that good a film. Zero for Conduct has a very dark view of the world, which, like The Wild Angels 35 years later, seems to condone anarchy over bureaucracy. It's a hard watch for modern audiences because Vigo's style is surreal at times. Nick Danger was one of the people that was there when I showed it, and he was very put off by the film. But Vigo was one of the earliest cinematic masters, and he was constantly playing with style and form a la Eisenstein and D.W. Griffith. So again, like The Wild Angels, it's a challenging film, but it's hard to argue that it's not fascinating, both in terms of its filmmaking and its content. The themes of educational reform and classicism are vividly portrayed and remain relevant even today. There's no way Davey saw this. Ryan, have you heard of Zero for Conduct?
I haven't.
Davey, you're not watching a lot of 30s French films these days.
Not as a rule, no.
If they played it in Metrograph when I was in New York, would you come?
I'll go to Metrograph.
And Ryan, just so you know, Metrograph is sort of like a newish indie, classic film house theater here in with a hipstery vibe because they have wooden seats.
It sounds awful. Just like a wooden chair.
It's got a cushion.
It's got cushions, yeah.
It's not super comfortable, but
Thank you for saying that. My number 3 film is something at least Davey probably have seen, and it's another boarding school movie, and this one might be a harder sell. Not in terms of the quality of the movie per se, but in terms of their level and anger. Devin and I argued about this one a little bit because it's more of a cultured anger. Kids fighting for artistic freedom. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Captain, my Captain. Dead Poets Society is my number 3. Devin and I argued about this one because he didn't think it qualified because they don't display their anger or disappointments in as violent a manner as the previous 2 films. But I don't think that matters because I feel like the acts of defiance at the end of the movie, I think, impactfully and peacefully display the level of rage this group of kids who can't fathom the level of censorship and control the older generation is trying to level upon them. The screenplay, the Oscar-winning screenplay, I might add, is taut, almost too perfectly structured at times. The direction from underappreciated master Peter Weir is subtle and nuanced, balancing out some of the more heavy-handed elements of the screenplay. Robin Williams was great, although I'm not sure if he deserved the Oscar nomination he got. He's more of a two-dimensional symbol than anything else. It's the performance of the kids that makes this a great movie. A young cast that rivals The Outsiders in terms of putting together a young ensemble that would have long careers. Actors like Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, Josh Charles. They're all wonderful in reflecting the angst, pain, curiosity, and frustration that comes with being that age, but also being shipped away from the people that supposedly love you and how that affects you on an emotional level. And for what it's worth, it is available on Netflix for free if anyone out there wants to rewatch it. Ryan, have you heard of or seen Dead Poets Society from 1989?
I actually watched it the day Robin Williams died.
And what'd you think?
I thought it was a very powerful film, and especially powerful in the context of that. I was whisked away by Robin Williams' performance. I think he had this warmth on screen that I grew up with. And
sure, but I mean, do you see my point about it being a two-dimensional, like it's ultimately a two-dimensional character. Like it's really about the kids' journeys.
I guess for me, it's just, I didn't care. I liked him so much that I was like, he's so charismatic.
I agree with all that. It's more of a screenplay complaint than a performance complaint.
Right. I guess, it reminds me of rewatching Aladdin, and you just realize he made Aladdin.
I would rather him get an Oscar nomination for Aladdin than Dead Poets Society. It's not that it's a bad performance, but in 1989, like I just felt like they were better in the year of Daniel Day-Lewis and My Left Foot. And Daniel Day-Lewis did win, in fairness, but Robin Williams, there's a ton of other movies that he should have gotten Oscar nominations for. Dead Poets Society is a good movie and a good performance. I don't know if it would be a top 5 performance in any given year for me. That's all that I'm saying.
I felt like it was iconic. I thought it did everything it was trying to do.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And it stays with you. It's a movie that stays with you.
I agree with that too. And maybe my comments on Robin Williams' performance, landed a little more harshly than I had hoped that they did. But I like the performance a lot. My only comment was that I didn't think it was one of the top 5 of that year. That doesn't knock it that much. Davey, are you a fan of this movie?
It kind of hurt listening to you rake Robin Williams over the coals like that.
Jerk.
That was a great movie. When I think Robin Williams, I think Awakenings, I think Dead Poet Society, and
Good Will Hunting.
Yes, Good Will Hunting. Those are the 3 that I always think of.
No wonder you're bad at the movie game. You just can't remember the titles.
You're right. I'm getting old.
As we established early in the show, I think I'm older.
That does not make me feel better.
I'm not sure I was trying to make you feel better. Dead Poets
It would be a first, wouldn't it?
Brian's distracted right now. I keep cutting to him for reaction shots, and he's like looking off wistfully into the distance.
Is this almost over?
Yeah,
What's the score?
I am listening.
No, I know you are. Any more on Dead Poets Society, Davey?
No, it's funny. I didn't realize that was Ethan Hawke. Wow.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. And the reason I know that specifically is because he went to high school in Princeton. I saw a movie where I was like a big fan of his because he did a movie called Explorers, directed by Joe Dante in 1986 or so, maybe 85. That's like a kid's movie that I really love. River Phoenix is in it as well. And I love Joe Dante. We haven't talked about him on the show at all. But so I knew Ethan Hawke, and he went to high school with a friend of mine. I went to see Ethan Hawke play Tom in The Glass Menagerie, in his high school production of The Glass Menagerie. Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah, no, it is. Speaking of Joe Dante, real quick, did you see Burying the Ex?
No.
See it.
Okay.
It's I wouldn't say it's good, but it's interesting.
All right. So now, is there anyone that wants to take Devin's side on this, that it shouldn't be counted as an angry youth movie?
No, he's really wrong about that. That's a bad argument. In fact, you should not have brought that up, because I want people to take him seriously, and this is gonna.
Ryan?
I mean, yeah, I think it's the epitome of what an angry youth movie is.
Okay, all right, good. I did good for once.
Wow.
Everybody's shocked. Number 2 is a movie that we talked about quite a bit in our last episode. I am putting Pump Up the Volume here at number 2, which we obviously analyzed at length in our last episode. It's a movie that captures the spirit and angst of a generation, what Hard Harry calls the why bother generation. And it does it so in a moving and palpable way. These kids won't be muzzled anymore. They won't be taken advantage of. They won't be kept silent. The number 1 movie that's about to come up is about kids that won't be heard. This movie takes that same idea and has the kids forcibly rip down those walls. Like number 4 and 5, however, on this list, anarchy is suggested as a placeholder for freedom and the ability to make her own choices. The film knows that there's a happy medium, but the thought of anarchy sends the message to the powers that be. So Pump Up the Volume is my number 2. Now, you guys both like the film. Maybe it sounds like not as much as Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, I definitely like Dead Poet better. Definitely resonated with me more.
But there's no argument with it being on the list in general.
I haven't really spent the time to compile my own thoughts. Out of the 2 that you've listed that I've seen,
yeah.
I think I could see it being on.
It would make a top 2 for you, so I think we're good.
No, it's funny if you're asking me to compare Pump the Volume versus Dead Poet Society. It's a tough decision. They're both good movies.
Yeah, I mean it's marginal. I mean, like I think quite frankly, Pump Up the Volume is a little edgier, and that's sort of what gives it, for lack of a better word, the edge in that matchup for me. It's the best I came up with. Sorry. Number one movie is a bigger one, and it's despite what the title suggests. I do think James Dean does have very specific things that he's rebelling against in this, the ultimate teen angst movie, Rebel Without a Cause. Primarily, Jim Stark, as played by Dean, is crying to be heard. He suggests that the generational gap is widening because adults aren't listening. They aren't trying to understand, and the results could be catastrophic. Of course, the centerpiece of the movie is the performance by James Dean, way ahead of his time, in a turn that makes method acting cool, instead of being on the fringes of the Hollywood scene as it was in the early 50s. This movie's from 1955. Natalie Wood and Sal Mineo aren't up to his level, but how can they be? Even though it's like they're in different movies, it doesn't detract enough from the movie for me. Director Nicholas Ray really digs for the emotional truth, not just with his direction of the performances, but also with his moody, lush color choices, both in design and in cinematography. He uses angles and framing in unique ways, especially for its time, to tell his story in a more thorough way. It's a tremendous use of mise-en-scène to constantly emasculate Jim's father or to trap Jim with his claustrophobic camera. And finally, Nicholas Ray cleverly dances around the undercurrent themes of sexuality, hinting at both incest and homosexuality without ever crossing the lines of the rigid production code of the time. Rebel Without a Cause is a top 100 all-time film for me. It's a very special film, very special performance. Have you guys seen, this is a bigger film, it's possible you've seen Rebel Without a Cause, Davey?
Yes, I've seen it.
Me too.
Okay, what do you guys think?
I love it.
It's a film that lives up to its hype. I think it's an important film. I mean, I would agree with it being ranked this high because it's lasted for as long as it has. You could watch it and still get a lot out of it, and given how old it is relative to everything else, I think it's a really impressive feat.
Okay, so Ryan says it belongs on the list, Davey.
Yeah, it definitely does belong. I'm just trying to think. I don't have a problem with it being number one either. Yeah. Wow.
No real complaints about this list. I was a little nervous about this one.
I mean, I don't know about those first two.
The Wild Angels and Zero for Conduct. Well, they're older, and I mean, you maybe Ryan, if you want to watch them, you can come back on the show, and then you can talk about them.
The Nazi one.
The Nazi one is the Wild Angels. Hey, but the Nazi one has the cast like it's Peter Fonda and Bruce Dern and Diane Ladd and Nancy Sinatra. I mean, it's got an all-star kind of cast going on. It's a crazy movie. Like it's really. It's on the list more as like a fascinating sociological kind of research kind of movie. Like it's fascinating to me. It's troubling. It's disturbing. But in that sense, it's effective. It certainly wasn't among my number one films from 1966 or anything. Like it probably didn't sniff the top 20. But in this list, specifically when it comes to angry youth movies, it felt like it qualified. Which leads me to the next question. Is there anything that I missed here that I should have thought about or purposefully left off?
I was just thinking about that. I mean, one film. So this is like a teenage angst list.
Angry youth was the way Davey described it to me. When he gave it to me, I sort of shaped it for myself, saying, it's not just disenfranchised youth or lost. It wasn't about ennui. It was about youth that were rebelling against something. They had something specific to say. They had a gripe, and that's sort of how I gave myself that parameter.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of stuff like Donnie Darko would fit in that.
Donnie Darko is more of a sci-fi thing, and there's some mental health things going on in Donnie Darko. Davey, do you have anything?
Thinking kids, but I don't know if that really fits.
There's a couple things. One, I think that is more in the case of ennui. I feel like that is more of like they're sort of drifting, and I also dislike that movie intensely. So
it's a horror show, man. I mean, it's a hard watch.
I saw that first run in the theaters at the Angelica back in '94.
Man, you are old.
Oh yeah, this one. Just trying to refresh my memory.
Did you Google angry youth movies? Did you Google angry youth movies?
No, because there's a movie called Angry Youth, and that's all you get.
Okay.
But there's a movie called If that I saw. I don't know if you've seen it, JB.
I actually talked about it. It's based on Zero for Conduct, which was my number 4. It's the same plot as Zero for Conduct, except the kids are older. So I definitely have seen it. I don't like If, was what I said. You weren't listening. You said you were listening. You weren't.
Well, I didn't know If until I saw it, what it was.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, with Malcolm McDowell, If. Yeah, Lindsay Anderson, 1971, I think. I don't like the film. I think the film actually is really kind of boring and annoying, and I didn't feel anything from that movie. I don't like If at all, which is why I didn't make the list. But If is based on Zero for Conduct, so I felt like, and I like Zero for Conduct very much.
Is there that one French classroom movie?
Are you talking about Zero for Conduct, where they take over the school?
No, it's a modern movie, and it just all takes place in a class. I think it's literally called Room or Classroom or something.
Oh, it's called The Class, but it's not Rebellion. That's about them. I think they get along in that movie. Like it's, I think it's Rebellion. I struggle with Trainspotting because I didn't feel like they were angry youth. I felt like they were lost youth.
I agree.
You agree? Okay.
I feel like I'm still not remembering. That's why I'm trying to like look up, because I feel like I'm still not remembering some main heavy hitters.
If is the big one that I purposefully left off. Like if is like a quintessential angry youth movie, I just don't think it's that strong a movie. You could also argue about Blackboard Jungles and The Outsiders. They're just delinquents. Neither of those films really get into the reason behind why they're franchised.
With something like Cool Hand Luke, but it's not necessarily youth.
Yeah, they're not that young in Cool Hand Luke. There's definitely just a franchisement about Cool Hand. Like it is about rebelling against authority, but I don't think they're young enough in Cool Hand Luke. I like the film though. Screened it last year.
Yeah, so you made a very specific window.
Yeah, I mean it was a tough one, but I'm glad it went okay. All right, guys, let's wrap things up. That's our sound off for the evening, and it was pretty tight. I feel pretty good about it. How do you guys feel? This is the end of our 49 series of episodes. Ryan, you've done 2 of them. Is your first sound off? How do you feel about the last couple episodes you did?
No one will ever beat in the movie game, so why play it? Just kidding.
Yeah, well,
it's like playing the chess spot in chess.
Well, I mean, honestly, as far as our show's concerned, and Davey, I think will back me up on this, it's less about the victor than it is about, the, I don't call it lessons, but about educating our audience or like being a resource for our audience about, different movies that are out there and who's in them. Wouldn't you say that's fair, Davey?
No, people thank me all the time for my insights on the show.
I mean, that's not what I meant. I meant like the movie game results in us, bringing up movies that we might not normally. And
they hear, like me, they hear a lot of movies that they never heard of.
Exactly. Davey, closing thoughts about the 49 series of episodes.
It's all right.
If this is the 49 series episodes, you know what that means next time.
Next time we'll have done one for every year of your life.
I'm 62, so we got a long way to go. But it will be our 50th. Next episode will be our 50th series of episodes, and it will start on August 2nd, Thursday, August 2nd, 2018, and we're going to review the film Mission Impossible Fallout, the latest in the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible series. I've actually lost count. I think this is the 6th one. I'm not sure. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun, and this meeting of the No Name Cinema Society is adjourned.